What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my full season review of Dexter Resurrection. Going into this, my expectations could not have been lower after Dexter New Blood, and the way that season completely botched the ending.
What did you do? What did you do?
I really thought this show was done for. I was still angry at how they killed Dexter off, and because this was the same creative crew returning, I just assumed they were going to screw it up all over again. I didn't want to get my hopes up, because nothing felt worse than being burnt again by a show you love so much. But I'll be honest, I was wrong.
Hell yes.
And I'm so glad I was wrong. This season was fantastic. It reminded me of why I love this show, and it gave me the feeling of classic Dexter in a modern setting. This was honestly the comeback I didn't expect, but am so thankful for. Before I get into the breakdown, I do want to point out that I reviewed every episode of this season as they aired, so if you want my immediate thoughts and reactions to the twists, the cliffhangers, and all the big character moments, definitely check out those videos. This review is more about stepping back and looking at the season as a whole, and trust me, there's a lot to talk about. The story is about Dexter returning in New York, facing new killers, rebuilding his bond with Harrison, and navigating a city full of danger and dark secrets. One of the biggest surprises of this season for me was Harrison. I absolutely hated him in New Blood. I thought it was annoying, whiny, and just written so poorly. But here in Resurrection, they completely redeemed the character. He was likable, he had layers, and you could actually root for him. His relationship with Dexter was compelling instead of forced, and for the first time, I actually cared about where his arc was going. That alone is a huge win for this season. Dexter's arc this season was also fantastic. You could feel him wrestling with who he is, owning his dark passenger in a way that felt like growth, while still keeping that trademark coldness and precision. His voiceovers, his decisions, even the way he interacted with other killers, all felt like peak Dexter.
That's what I always wanted. I know. A place for people like you where they can belong. We all want to belong.
Writers remembered who this character is, and it made him compelling again. After the disaster of Season 8 in New Blood, seeing Dexter written this well again felt almost surreal. And that premise of Leon Prater hosting events with killers and vaults full of secrets sounds absolutely ridiculous on paper. If you had told me that's what they were doing, I probably would have laughed.
What the f is this piece of
But the execution of it was brilliant. It was tense, it was fun, and it worked. Every episode had me hooked, and the subplots connected to Prater's world actually added to the tension instead of distracting from it. This storyline could have easily gone wrong, but it ended up being one of the most entertaining parts of the entire season. The cinematography was once again incredible, building off what New Blood established, but refining it even more. Every shot looked crisp, and the sets were so well designed. From Prater's Gala to the vault to the darker kill rooms, the production design was top-notch and made everything feel cinematic. Another thing I loved was how the show managed to keep so many subplots engaging. Usually in Dexter, side characters can drag the story down, but here I was actually invested. A lot of them tied into the main mystery or added suspense to Dexter's situation. And while not every subplot landed perfectly, the effort was clear and most of it worked. Moving on to the mix, I have to mention the way they handled Batista. At first, when I watched episode 9 and saw his death, I thought it was brilliant. It's one of the most sad and powerful moments in the entire franchise. At the time the credits rolled, I was a wreck. Touched by an Angel isn't just a strong episode, it's a masterpiece. It felt bold, shocking, and honestly ballsy for the writers to pull off. But the more I sat on it, the more I felt conflicted. Because as much as I liked seeing Batista throughout the season, killing him off kind of felt wasted. Why bring him back just to end him like that? And the way he went out choking Dexter instead of focusing on Prater felt really unearned. It wasn't horrible, but it didn't sit as well with me after some reflection. So I'd call it a mixed bag. I loved Batista in the earlier episodes, but the way the story ended with him was questionable. As for the negatives, the first one is very easy for me. I despise the the detective character. She is so unbelievably annoying, such a cliche, and just insufferable to watch. Every time she was on screen, she was listening to Staying Alive, and it became more of a gimmick than an actual character trait. She never felt like a real person, just a checklist item for annoying character trope. I dreaded every scene she was in. There were also some loose ends that really bothered me. For example, Elsa and their son were introduced and then just completely forgotten about. It was weird to build them up earlier and then not pay them off at all. Same with the New York Reaper. I thought for sure we'd get a proper resolution to that subplot, but it just sort of fizzled out. Leaving those threads hanging felt like sloppy storytelling. Uma Thurman's character, Prayer's assistant, also didn't really work for me. Even when they gave her that emotional plotline about her sick mother, it felt kind of forced. I never connected with her, and by the end, I just didn't care what happened to her. One negative that stuck out to me, even if it's not the biggest deal, is the way they decided to explain Dexter's return. The whole idea that the snow slowed down his blood loss enough for him to survive, it felt kind of dumb and a little lazy. It wasn't a deal breaker by any means, since I was just happy to have Dexter back, but it did make me wish they had came up with a more clever or believable way to bring him into this new story. Another issue I had was with Dexter's girlfriend. Around episodes 8 through 10, she suddenly becomes this important piece of his life, but she was written in such a mysterious way that it almost felt like a setup. I actually had a theory that she was going to be revealed as the New York Reaper because the show made her feel shady on purpose. But now that we know who the Reaper really is, her presence feels pointless. It was like the writers had no idea what to do with her, and it left me scratching my head. Overall though, I loved Dexter Resurrection. It was such an entertaining season. Every episode had me hyped, and it felt like the show finally returned to form after the disasters that were Season 8 and New Blood. Sure, there were issues, some characters didn't work, some loose ends went unresolved, and not every decision landed. But the core of what makes Dexter great was back. The tension, the kills, the psychology, and the thrill of watching him navigate his world again. I'm giving this season a 9 out of 10. So that's my full review of Dexter Resurrection. I'd love to hear what you all thought. Did you enjoy this season as much as I did? Or did some of the flaws hold it back for you? Drop your opinions in the comments and let's talk about it. Thanks so much for checking out this review, and I'll see you in the next one.